In this lesson, we'll learn how we can create a hierarchy arrangement for all of the individual pieces that make up our cartoon duck. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so now that we've finished designing our character, and again we've broken him up into separate pieces along the way so that he can be used for a cutout style type of animation, we basically want to set up some hierarchy arrangements for those pieces so that basically if I were to move this upper arm, then the lower arm and the hand should follow suit, and then likewise if I just move the lower arm, the hand should follow along. So let's explore how we can do this over here in the layers section of our timeline view. We'll go ahead and zoom in, and let's start with the head, okay? So the first thing I want to go ahead and do is drag all of the facial attributes that I want attached to the head onto the head layer. That way, if I were to rotate the head, all of those attributes would follow along and remain attached to the head. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and start with the eyes. We'll drag it on top of that layer. And when we do that, you can see that there's a little indentation marker now next to the eyes layer, and then we also have this arrow pointing downward next to the head layer. That basically shows that the eyes are now connected to the head. We can collapse that arrow to basically hide those layers that are attached to that head layer. Now you'll also notice how the eyes jumped behind the head. And this is really because the eyes are now sitting beneath the head layer, okay? But we had to drag it on top of that head layer in order to parent it to the head. And so we're going to talk about how to rectify these issues. You're going to see more of this happen as we go forward with these hierarchy arrangements. It's a very simple fix that we'll talk about towards the end of the lesson. Okay, so next let's go ahead and grab the cheeks, grab those and pull them on top of the head there. And again, you can see how that's kind of jumping there. And then we'll go ahead and do the eyebrows as well. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and grab the beak. Okay, so here's what's happening. Basically, the arrangement in which these are now being stacked here within our head layer basically affect how they're looking here in the camera view. Okay, again, the camera view basically reflects any kind of changes or transformations that we make, as opposed to the drawing view that basically shows the character in its original form. So what we can do is hit our data view button right here, all right? And this will basically allow us to expand each one of these layers by clicking the plus sign for each one of them, okay? So for the eyes, for example, let's go ahead and click on that, and we can come in here and adjust the position Z. So we may want to bring the eyes forward just one, and we can see how those eyes come forward. Let's do the same thing for the cheeks. So we'll come forward one there. And then let's do the same thing for the beak as well. So we'll come forward one there. So now you can see everything is back to normal. He looks like a regular cartoon duck. Awesome. Okay, so now what we want to do is basically take the head and connect it to the body. That way if we move the body, the head follows suit. So I'm going to take this head layer containing all of those parented facial attributes, drag it onto the body. Okay, cool. Okay, so now we can actually collapse that arrow for the body. It hides the head within it. Now let's go ahead and tackle the appendages, the arms and the legs. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with that upper arm 2 once again. So I want the lower arm to be connected to the upper arm, so just pulling the lower arm over that upper arm layer, hand 2 over the lower arm, and so now all those are connected together accordingly, and I want that to basically be placed on the body. And you can see how that's jumping back too. So what we can do once again is go into our data view, making sure we have it open by clicking that button. To expand upper arm 2 and expand the plus sign for the upper arm, since it's basically the main parent of all three of those. And for Z, we'll go ahead and bring it forward a couple there. Okay, and we'll go ahead and collapse that back down. So these are things you're going to run into inevitably when you're designing your character, especially as you're basically setting up these hierarchy arrangements over here in your layers section. Now, actually looking at that upper arm too, once we adjusted the Z depth, I'm also noticing that it kind of shifted a little bit. So we could actually grab our transform tool and we could pull it over slightly if we want to right there, if we're not happy with how it's looking. So that's something else you could also do. Okay, so basically when we did that, just to jump back in there one more time, we adjusted the position X. Okay, so just kind of sliding it over slightly there. All right, and again, none of these changes we're making will be reflected in the drawing view, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and continue moving on forward. We'll go ahead and tackle the upper arm 1. And so we want the lower arm basically to be attached to the upper arm and the hand attached to the lower arm. And we'll go ahead now and pull that into the body. And that is setting behind the body, it looks like, so we're okay there. Same thing with the legs. Basically setting up that upper and lower leg and foot 1 right there. And we'll go ahead and pull that into the body as well. And let's go ahead and attach the upper leg 2 and lower leg 2 and foot 2. Okay, outstanding, and we'll go ahead and pull that in. So as you're working on your own character, if you're noticing anything that is being pushed back or forward or just doesn't look right, come into your data view right there and then click on the plus sign and go in and adjust the Z depth. That'll kind of help rectify a lot of those issues. And again, if you need to adjust the position X or Y after doing that just slightly, you can do that as well. Okay, so now that we have our hierarchy arrangements in place, we're now ready to basically start applying pivots to all of these different parts of the body, which will basically allow us to rotate those different parts of the body accordingly. So stick around and we'll tackle that in our next lesson.